Are you looking for a one-stop financial shop? You want to invest and you want to automate your money to take away the hassle of worrying about things each and every week? Well, in this podcast, I'm going to introduce you to Pearler. Pearler is one of our longest running partners here at Rask, and I'm so delighted to do this video to explain why so many of the Rask community use Pearler for their investing and so much more. If you want to automate your money, stay tuned because this episode is for you. Hi, I'm Owen, the host of the Australian Finance Podcast. This podcast is proudly sponsored by BetaShares, one of the leading providers of ETFs here in Australia. Serving thousands of financial advisors and over 1 million investors, BetaShares manages tens of billions of dollars on behalf of investors right across the country. I'm proud to partner with BetaShares on the Australian Finance Podcast, Australia's premier financial podcast, because there is great alignment in the long-term philosophy shared by both businesses. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Australian Finance Podcast. Pearler started in 2018 with a very simple idea to bring boring long-term investing to all Australians. It was started by Nick Nicolaides and Hayden Smith. Nick is a long-time professional investor and saw an opportunity to bring professional investing tools with simplicity and great outcomes to everyday Australians. Hayden was a guest lecturer at UNSW teaching computer science, so he brings the technology backing alongside some frugal money tips. Together, Nick and Hayden have built Pearler into a monstrous platform now. It's actually a wonderful platform and app that allows tens of thousands of people to invest quickly and easily. What initially drew me to Pearler was the very fact that when you log into the app and you click on an ETF or a share that you might be looking at or researching, the first thing it showed you back in the day was a 10-year price chart. Now you might be thinking, what has that got to do with anything? Most investment platforms make money by charging you brokerage. So the platform is incentivized to keep you trading more frequently. How can they do that? How can they incentivize you to trade more frequently? Well, the easiest way is to put all these bells and whistles in front of you, all of these different signals, such as a daily price chart. That's why when you log into most big investment apps or investment accounts, the first thing you see is what's happening today. There's a news feed, there's red and green arrows, and obviously red is to signify blood and negativity. And so it's trying to keep you as emotional as possible every time you log into your app. Pearler is totally different. You can place trades on Pearler without even logging in. So that was the second thing which got to me. I saw this long-term investing mindset in the way they built the platform and the app, combined with this very simple way of automating your money. Those two things speak to the philosophy, but also what you can do with this platform. The name Pearler comes from something that you want to protect. Obviously, a pearl is something that's inside a clamshell, and it's something that's kind of precious to you, much like your money. Pearler kind of builds these tools around your money to help you manage it and to stay focused on what's really important to you. As of 2025, Pearler, as I said, has tens of thousands of active investors on the platform. What's remarkable about it is that 87% of the investments actually go into ETFs, not individual shares. Again, this speaks to the power of keeping investing simple and sensible for everyday Aussies. With fixed cost brokerage, which I'll get to in a minute, it's easy to set up a portfolio on Pearler and use the automation features to dollar cost average into some of the most reliable and long-term focused ETFs that you want to buy. But today, Pearler is actually way more than just a brokerage account. It might have had just ASX shares and ETFs when it launched, but it's since evolved to include US shares, micro-investing, tools for the first home super saver scheme, superannuation, and so much more. Pearler is trying to be a one-stop shop, which is why it appeals to so many investors that have so many different use cases. Another feature of Pearler that I really liked was the HIN-based holding system for ASX shares and ETFs. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what that means, when you have a broker that uses the HIN-based model, it effectively means that the shares and ETFs that you own are held legally in your own name. So, if you were to buy shares on this new thing called Pearler quite a few years ago, you could get a lot of confidence knowing that if you bought a Vanguard ETF, that ETF and the holding that you have in it is actually tied to your name at the stock exchange level. so at the ASX level rather than the individual broker level or Pearler. This is very different to custodial models, which are the most common overseas. A common criticism that I hear is that custodial models, those overseas style models, are cheaper. You can get very low cost, even free brokerage on custodial models versus HIN-based models, which offer this extra layer of security and of course cost you more because the ASX is getting involved. However, if you think about it, when you're starting out with a new trading account, oftentimes you do want that extra surety of knowing that you've got a HIN-based model. Now, inside Pearler, there are many other things that you can invest in that don't offer the HIN-based model. So let's be clear, if you own US shares or micro-investing, they don't come with HIN-based models because they can't do that because the HIN model is Australian and requires you to own individual shares and ETFs in your own name. So you can't micro-invest into a HIN-based model, nor can you invest in US shares because it's not Australian. Pearler goes beyond that and has a range of different features that enable you to invest really seamlessly and easily. By far the biggest feature, and what I always tell Nick and Hayden is the most valuable thing that Pearler does, is automate your money. You can automate when your money goes into Pearler. You can then also automate when it is invested, what it is invested in, and you can do rebalancing as well. So in effect, you can set this thing on autopilot and it does it all for you. The way it does that is it uses bank-grade encryption to effectively connect to your bank account and then connect that to the investment actions you want it to take. If you've been in software engineering or one of these fields where you're used to integrating technology, you might have come across things like Zapier or Make, formerly Integrately, that enable you to have kind of connections between different pieces of software. One of the things that Pearler worked out really early is that you can connect different pieces of financial tools together by using, really good software engineering. And that's where Hayden and his team came in. So in effect, you can link your bank account and the activity that you've got going on there directly to your investment account and have all the automations firing based on triggers in the background. So once you set up your portfolio, you might have 5 ETFs or something like that. You can quickly and easily have it run in the background. An example of an automation might be investing in a portfolio of ASX listed shares or even reinvesting your dividends into new shares or ETFs. So what you can do is you can set up your bank account, hook it up with an automation on Pearler, which is just a few clicks, and then let it run. You can have a few automations before you tipped into a higher price tier, but for the most part, most people don't need that many automations running to keep their investing ticking over. This is obviously super powerful for dollar cost averaging people who want to add money regularly, say for example, when you get paid every 2 months or something like that. Another really cool feature, which I alluded to before, is the ability to do rebalancing. Rebalancing is a really important tool for long-term investors, and particularly as you get closer to needing the money that you rely on and you have built. So automating the rebalancing can be a fantastic way to take advantage of, prudent long-term investing. One final feature I'll call out is inside Pearler, you now have the ability to have superannuation configured inside your account. This brings together basically all of the share investing that you might do, as well as your long-term money or your ultra long-term money that may be in the form of superannuation. As with all these things, be sure to read the PDS before deciding if it's right for you, because this podcast only includes general financial information. But let's talk about costs. Obviously, one of the things that you've got to keep in mind when you're dealing with any type of brokerage platform is how do they get paid, what are the fees, so on and so forth. So on the Pearler platform, what's really interesting is you can prepay your investing. Now, I'll just bring this up for people that are watching, and if you're listening, I'll talk you through it. As we can see on the website, boring investing for the long term. If you're investing in CHESS-sponsored or HIN-based ASX shares and ETFs, it's $6.50 per buy or sell. And again, you can prepay for a discount, kind of like how you used to get those prepaid coffee cards at your local cafe. Same thing for US shares, $6.50 AUD. This is an interesting thing because a lot of investing apps and tools actually price their US investing in US dollars. So that's a bit of a nuance. Obviously, the Australian dollar at the time of recording isn't worth as much as the US dollar. So you're actually paying more to trade shares from Australia because you're getting charged in US dollars. So one of the things to keep in mind when you review any brokerage account is actually just making sure that you are understanding exactly how much you pay to buy and sell shares. Again, some platforms say that it's free brokerage or something like that, but charge you on the transactions to go from Australian dollars to US dollars and then back again. So many of them will try and do that in the background for you, making it seem really simple, but ultimately you end up with less money because every time you transfer money back and forth, you're actually losing a bit in the foreign exchange spread. So that's that little percentage that they often take when you're going back and forth. Of course, you can do micro investing and a few other things with your Pearler account. So there's a lot of fees. It's all really easy to understand on the Pearler website. Obviously, if you're investing larger amounts of money, like $10,000, $50,000 or $100,000 at a time, which some of the Rask community are fortunate to do, it's really important to remember that if you have a percentage-based brokerage account, so say a broker that says something like, the fee that you pay is $10 or the greater of ... and there's a percentage. What will happen is that as you invest more and more money, in effect, you'll end up paying way more in brokerage fees. So having the fixed cost brokerage is a real feature of Pearler. One final thing I'll do a shout out to for the Pearler team is their focus on knowledge and education. If you've listened to this podcast for many years, we've been going since 2019, I believe, ultimately you would have heard Pearler and some of the founders or users on the show before. What they've done is commit to investing in financial education, which is a fantastic thing. And if you're building a business or platform like Pearler, it makes sense because you want people to be educated and informed. One of the reasons why the really big investment platforms don't do a lot of financial education is because they don't want you to know exactly what you'd be paying or how the platform works. Because if you don't really know, you can't really question it. So by bringing more education to all Australians, even if it's free on Pearler's YouTube channel or social media, it sheds light on what's really happening in the financial system. And I think that's a real key strength for the business and the brand overall. Yet again, another reason why I was really comfortable partnering with Pearler for many years now. So if you want to learn more, you can head to pearler.com. Always read the T's and C's. When you engage with any platform, there's a few things that you should do. Number one is you should read the Financial Services Guide. You've probably heard me say this, an FSG. That's the legal document that's basically found on all of their websites that explain what the business is and how you're charged, and also the different parties involved. If you go and invest in ETFs, obviously you have a PDS. That's a product disclosure statement. But if you're doing different things inside the Pearler platform, you may also encounter a PDS for example, superannuation or something like that. So be sure to make sure that you read that PDS before you do anything, because that's also important to understand how things are done behind the scenes. Of course, with all these things, I think it's important to start small and to keep compounding through time. As we always say on the show, use automation. Automation is your friend. Automate things that are good for you, add friction to things that are bad for you. And small amounts, lots of times, makes the world of difference. Investing small amounts is easily done with a platform like Pearler because you can set up so many automations, invest small amounts from micro amounts right up to huge amounts regularly every month. If you want us to do more kind of deep dives into brokerage platforms or investment platforms or apps, be sure to reach out to me using the YouTube comments, the Spotify comments, or just follow the link in your podcast player where it says ask a question. I'd love to know what you think of the Pearler platform. I know so many of our community use the Pearler platform religiously and absolutely love it. So I'd love to know what you think about it. Anything that could be done better, we can pass that back to the team at Pearler. So thanks for listening to this episode of the Australian Finance Podcast. Thanks for watching this episode of the podcast. If you want to hear more from us, you can get daily videos and podcasts on Rask's YouTube channel. Or if you want to enroll in a free course on investing, property, business, money, you name it, you can join over 34,000 other students and enroll in a free course on the Rask website. Simply head to www.rask.com.au and follow the prompts. Thanks for watching this Rask podcast.